Welcome to Enterprise Manager Product Training Series. My name is Yutaka Takatsu. I am one of the product managers in Enterprise Manager Product Management team. My topic today is Enterprise Manager Monitoring Overview. Here is the agenda. As this is an overview presentation, I plan to touch every feature high level with some deep dive. So let me start from Monitoring Overview and its background architecture. Enterprise Manager Cloud Control provides unattended monitoring capabilities to your IT environment, and that starts right after the installation. So let's see how that works in a simplified diagram as you see in the screen. In this example, you have a host. Perhaps it's a Linux box, or Windows, or Solaris, or Exadata, whatever that is, this is your host system. And you have database, listener, and application server running. Also, there are some back-end components. These are the IT assets that you want to use EM to monitor. Once that happens, they will become managed entities, which is usually referred as targets. So every single of these will become a target once EM starts to monitor them. And here in the left side of the screen, we have Enterprise Manager setup. EM consists of three major components: OMS, or Oracle Management Service, OMR, or Oracle Management Repository, and Agent. Agent should be installed on each monitored host. It collects health and performance information from all the targets reside on that host. They are, in this example, database, application server, listener, and other components. And of course, the host system itself. Then agent sends the collected target information back to OMS, which is the centerpiece of EM. OMS then processes the request and write it down to OMR, which is a database that EM stores the information. So this is a high-level diagram on how Enterprise Manager works. And in regards to the monitoring configuration, that takes place mostly in the OMS piece. So what you can do in OMS, you can configure, first of all, the monitoring settings, such as metric threshold or collection timing for each metric in each target type. Once you complete a set of metric settings, you can zip them up into a single package, which we call as monitoring template, and apply that to other targets with the same target type, so you can standardize the monitoring settings across the board. You can apply the template to other targets manually, or you can automate the process so that the targets have the same monitoring settings as they are added to EM. Once the monitoring starts and there is a problem found in your target, for example, CPU is overloaded, memory is overconsumed, table space full, target is down, you can configure to send notification alerts. You can send alerts into your mailbox or to your pager, or send it to another server via OS command or SNMP trap. Based on the alert you get, you can create an incident and manage the incident's lifecycle in Enterprise Manager's built-in Incident Manager capability. Here you can assign the incident to somebody, set priority, change status using a dedicated console. Or if you prefer to manage alerts in third-party ticketing systems, you can forward the notification from EM to those tools, create tickets in that tool, and send updates as the status changes. Enterprise Manager also allows you to run corrective actions, which automatically starts a job that remediates a problem. For example, if you get an alert, which is table space full, then you can configure to set the trigger to run a job that adds more space to the table space so that the alert will be closed automatically. And lastly, if your IT assets are in the planned downtime and you do not want to have notifications sent in such event, you can configure to apply blackout to those targets to suppress alerts during the maintenance time. So that was a very high level of Enterprise Manager monitoring overview. Now let's take a closer look for each of these topics in the next few slides. Once you have Enterprise Manager set up, and if you're going to start monitoring of a new target type, one way to go is to look at our out-of-the-box metrics and settings. Enterprise Manager ships with pre-configured monitoring settings for each target type. This includes metrics threshold and collection timings. So when you install Enterprise Manager the first time and open metric settings page, you will see some metrics enabled and some already have threshold values set. These are pre-configured by Oracle. On the other hand, the out-of-the-box monitoring settings, they are aimed to cover generic use cases. So while this is a good place to start with, the configurations are very high level. So tuning or customizing the settings are usually required in order to satisfy your corporate standard in most cases. So what you can do is to customize these settings to best meet your requirements and standards, such as enabling or disabling the metrics, changing threshold, or adding metric extension or corrective actions based on what you need. And once you customize your metric settings, you can save that in a monitoring template and apply to other targets with the same target type. But what is monitoring template? And that is what I'm going to talk about in the next slide. Monitoring template is a named collection of metric settings for target type. It allows you to define monitoring settings on one of your target and apply them to other targets with the same target type. This way, you can standardize the monitoring settings across the enterprise. So monitoring templates, they typically contain complete set of metric settings, which includes metrics, threshold values, correction intervals, metric extensions, advanced threshold settings, and corrective actions. So essentially what this allows you to do is once you go through the out-of-the-box metric settings and customize them, which is a one-time operation you have to perform for each target type, you can save the settings in a monitoring template so that you can copy the same settings to other targets you have in your environment. And you can create new templates, edit them, save them, or apply to other targets. You can also export and import template. So if you have more than one Enterprise Manager deployment, you can export a monitoring template from one of your EM site, bring over to another EM site, and import into EM to share the monitoring settings across the enterprise. And some tips creating templates. First of all, you need to create monitoring template specific to target types. So one template per target type at least. This is obviously because each target type has different set of metrics and they cannot share among different target types. So they require different templates. You may have groups of targets that are used under particular conditions such as production or development. And say each group has a set of databases and hosts, then probably they have different workload, and because of that, monitoring requirements are also different. In this case, you need 4 different templates, one for production host, another for development host, one for production database, another for development database. And finally, once you have defined the monitoring template, you can apply them to other targets manually using EM console, or you can run command line, EMCLI to do so, or you can automate the application process using administration group. But what is administration group? Why do we need one? That is because deploying monitoring template to a target is still a manual process. In a dynamic environment, you may have hundreds of databases added to the data center every week. So the questions may be, do I need to apply the monitoring settings manually to them each time they are added to the EM? Or what if I want to change monitoring settings just for one metric? Do I still have to reapply the entire monitoring settings for all the targets? Unfortunately, the answer is yes, if you do not use admin group. So that's where the admin group comes into play. Administration group, or admin group in short, is a special kind of group that has designed in purpose for automating the deployment of monitoring settings and compliance standard, especially to the large number of targets. So using admin group, when a target is added to the group, EM automatically deploys the monitoring template to the newly added targets. And that is not only one monitoring template. Admin group is associated with a concept which is called template collections, which is a package of monitoring templates for different target types. So when a new target is added to the group, whatever the target type that is, admin group detects its target type, database, host, or whatever, and automatically applies the right template if you have one in your template collection. And if you change the monitoring settings in the template, that applies to all the targets in the group. So if you want to just change one metric for all of your database targets, you do not need to go every single target. Just change the metric settings in the template that will be deployed to all of your targets in the group. So this is a high level of what you can get from admin group. It helps you to automate the process for applying monitoring settings dynamically to your targets as they are added to the group. So how you can set up admin group? This comes with 3 steps. First step, you need to define the structure of the targets you manage in the group. For example, in this diagram, you may have 1,000 targets and 500 of them are in production and another 500 of them are in development. Then within the production group, 200 may belong to the sales department and other 300 belong to the marketing. Same applies to the development group. That creates 4 different leaf nodes showing at the right-hand side of the screen: production sales, production marketing, dev sales, and dev marketing. But technically, how the group hierarchy can be defined in admin group. For this, we use target properties. So the next step here is to define the target properties for each node in admin groups. So in this example, say you have a target. The target has target properties. They are lifecycle status property that is set to production and department property that is set to sales. This target will automatically add it to the prod sales group, which is at the upper right side of the screen. Then as a final step, you need to define template collections and associate with admin group. This is not just one template though. It is a set of monitoring templates which covers all target types in the group. So if the production sales node has 2 different target types such as host and database, you need 2 monitoring templates in a template collection, one for each target type. Once these steps are performed and admin groups are created, existing targets and future targets will be added to the group based on the target properties defined, and the monitoring settings are automatically applied to them. Beyond that, any change you make on templates that will be synchronized with the target at the scheduled sync time, by default once in 24 hours, but you can change that. You can also manually sync them anytime by pressing a button in EM console. So that was about admin groups. But we actually have other types of groups in EM as well. So let me quickly talk about the groups in general to cover them. There are 3 different types of groups in EM: static, dynamic, and admin groups. And we just covered admin group. Static group is most basic form of groups we have in EM. It is simply a set of multiple targets with no restriction in membership. You can add any type of targets, database or host or whatever, into a static group. Everything is manual. You can add any target manually or drop them manually. If you don't touch them, no change happens to the members. Typically works well with a small set of targets, say in a size which is controllable by human administrator. Dynamic group. This is a set of targets that is automatically connected by the membership criteria. It can be used when you want to manage a set of targets that have something in common. For example, a group of targets that supports your production environment. That can be in one group. You may have another set of targets that supports your development environment. That can be a group too. Either case, what is in common among the member targets in this example are the lifecycle status. That's either production or development. So this is a membership criteria which you can define in dynamic group. And you need to use target properties for that, similar to what we just saw in admin group. And based on the membership criteria, targets that satisfy the condition will be automatically added to the dynamic group. Then what is the difference between the admin group? The major difference here is that dynamic group does not have an idea of managing monitoring settings. So the monitoring settings are not associated with dynamic group. Admin group in general is designed for a specific purpose. It aims to automate the deployment and maintenance of the monitoring settings. Dynamic group, on the other hand, is more generic. It can be used in any purpose of any operation. And compared to the static group, dynamic group is mostly beneficial for a larger group of targets in a dynamic environment where you see many targets added or dropped frequently. And the benefits that are general to groups are shown in the right-hand side of the screen. They basically simplify the management and bring consistency to the target you manage. And it is especially beneficial in a large, dynamic, or growing environment. Here we have examples of additional benefits using groups. The first example here is that by using groups, you can deploy multiple targets to Blackout in one shot instead of adding targets one by one. You can create a group and add that group to a Blackout. All targets included in the group will go Blackout in one click. Some customers create and maintain a group solely for this purpose so that they can quickly block out hundreds of targets whenever they need it to, especially useful when it comes to blocking out a large number of targets. Another example, it allows you to propagate target properties to member targets. So if you plan to add or change target property, and if you want to push that setting to hundreds of thousands of your targets, you don't want to do it manually one by one. So here you can run an emcli command that's shown in this example. The point is to use the optional parameter propagate to members, and this will change target properties to all the targets in that group one shot. An example command showing here in this slide is when a customer needed to add downtime conduct target property to thousands of their database targets so that they can use always on monitoring feature to monitor them during their planned downtime. There are several ways to do so, but what worked the best for them was to run this command. The next topic is metric extension. So we talked about the metrics that are pre-configured in EM. In addition to those out-of-the-box metrics, which EM ships with, Enterprise Manager offers a mechanism that customers can craft their own set of metrics. That's metric extension. So metric extension, it allows you to extend the monitoring scope because you can create your own set of metrics to suit your particular needs. Metric extensions are full-fledged metrics, similar to EM's out-of-the-box metrics. They are handled in the same way with the metrics provided by EM, which means you can set threshold, set alert notifications, and corrective actions, just like the other metrics. It shows up in all metrics page in Enterprise Manager, so you can see the historical graphs or reports for them just the same way you do for the other out-of-the-box metrics. So how you create metric extension? First, you need to select the target type, which target type you want to run this custom metric against. The next, you need to select the adapters that builds the metric extension. And which adapters available depends on the target type. Say the target type you selected is database target. Then you have choices to select either OS command or SQL adapter. You can use OS command adapter to kick the shell script that runs in OS level, or SQL adapter to run PL/SQL script directly in the target database. There are also SNMP or JMX that support other target types such as middleware servers. Metric extension has lifecycle support for its three phases, develop, test, and deploy. It also has import and export capability, so you can share it among the different EM deployments. Some cool features. Metric extension has an option to calculate metric column value based on mathematical operation between columns of the same metric extension. So the example for this is that you can get a free disk space by calculating a difference of two column values, total disk space and used disk space. There are many operators available to use for this calculation, not only those standard arithmetic operators such as plus, minus, multiply, or divided by, but also supports programmatic expressions. Another feature is repository-side metric extension. This is another type of metric extension that allows you to use SQL scripts to extract information directly out from the EM repository. One of the benefits of doing this is that you can set the alert based on the state of multiple metric alerts coming from the same target or different targets. Say you are monitoring a target. CPU utilization and total disk space are the metrics you care. You can set an alert only when both metrics cross the threshold. Next topic is corrective actions. There are some cases that when you get an alert, you know exactly what to do for the next action, either to fix the problem by running a script or collect information to find out what happened. Those cases, you can use the Enterprise Manager's corrective actions feature to automate the recovery process. Typical use cases are when a table space running out of space or services are down, you can configure to trigger corrective actions in those cases. For example, say at 3 a.m. in the morning, metric alert is raised for table space being full. Enterprise Manager receives that event and found a corrective action that is associated with a table space metric for this target. EM then executes the corrective action right away. Shortly after, the issue gets resolved and alert is cleared. This all happens automatically. At 9 a.m. in the morning, when DBA comes to work, all he sees is that everything has done while he was sleeping. So corrective action, technically it is nothing but a job. So to add more space to the disk, you can write a script, a SQL script, and create a job out of it, and configure to run when the metric threshold is crossed. Similar to that, when EM detects a service is down, you can configure to run a script to restart the service. Another use case is to collect diagnostic information. For the issues that may require investigation, you can run scripts that collect diagnostic logs and report upon crossing the metric threshold. So when DBAs get the ticket, they already have the required information on their desk that they need for the investigation. So that's corrective actions. So we just talked about corrective actions, which gets triggered upon event is raised. There is another important feature in EM that gets triggered at the time of the event generation, which is the notification. And the notification is controlled in the feature called incident rules. In Enterprise Manager, incident rule automate rule actions, which are related to an event or incident or problem, and the notification is one of the rule actions that incident rule can execute. And incident rules can execute other actions too, such as to create an incident or assign an incident, or automatically group related events into a single incident to simplify the alert management. Let's see the example. When a target that is monitored by EM is down, it raises a fatal event. Incident rule in Enterprise Manager detects the event and tries to find if there's any matching rule set applicable for this particular target or specific metrics. And the rule set, this is a kind of container of rules. Within a rule set, there could be one or more rules, and the rule also has a list of rule actions. But in short, rule mechanism basically gets triggered at the event occurrence and instructs EM for what to do to handle such event. Once Enterprise Manager finds a matching rule, it executes the rule actions. So in this example, email notification was sent to John. Also, an incident was created, and that was also assigned to John, who is the DBA for this target. An email is the most popular notification method, but if you want to send notification information to other server and process the data in homegrown or third-party tools, you can do that by using other notification methods such as OS command or SNP traps. For major ticketing systems, such as ServiceNow, we have dedicated connector service that forwards the EM event information. So let's see that in the next slide. So as mentioned in the previous slide, as a part of a notification method, we have connector services that integrates EM with popular third-party management systems. There are two types of connectors. One is a service desk connector that connects with ticketing system vendors, such as BMC or CA or ServiceNow. This type of connector allows EM to automatically create service desk tickets in those systems in response to Enterprise Manager incidents. So basically, here we have a capability to map our incident information to the vendor tickets so that the valid ticket in those tools can be created based on the information EM collected. Once the ticket is created, any update we see in the corresponding EM incident, we will also forward that to third-party system so that it can update the ticket accordingly. Another type of connector is an event connector that connects with event management vendor products. So this type of connector allows EM to forward events to third-party management systems so that they can process the event information whatever the way they want it to, such as to feed data to their own applications, any application they have, or to run their own corrective actions to fix a problem. And unlike the service desk connector that has a specific purpose, that is to create a ticket, and we have a way to follow up, event connectors, on the other hand, can be used for more generic purpose. The connectors that are available in Enterprise Manager are shown in the right-hand side of the screen, but I have more details on the next slide, so let me show you that. This is a list of connectors available from Enterprise Manager 13.3 today. Also the vendor product names and their versions supported by connector. This information can be seen in our documentation, and we keep it up to date. So as always, please check the documentation for updates on the latest release supported. So we have been talking about events, alerts, and incidents. But you may wonder, what is the incident and how that is different from events? Another question we often get is, how is the event different from alert? So let's clarify those questions here. When Enterprise Manager detects an issue in target monitoring, it generates an event. And please note, it is not alert that it raises here, it's an event. And that event could be metric alert event or target availability event or metric evaluation error event. Depends on the type of the metric which triggered the event generation. So in the EM world, in fact, there is no official term of alert. What it has is a metric alert event, which is one type of event. However, actually the term alert is often used interchangeably with event in general or notifications. So when we say I got an alert, which usually means I got email notification. What is the incident then? Incident is actually a ticket in EM. It contains one or more events that are related to the significant issue and allows you to manage them as a complete unit. So unlike event, you can acknowledge an incident, assign ownership to the incident, track its resolution status, and prioritize or escalate. So the incident management, this is our own ticketing system we have in Enterprise Manager. And Incident Manager is the dedicated console. It's a user interface that you can view, manage, diagnose these incidents in one location. What I have here is the Incident Manager console in Enterprise Manager 13C. Open my screen. It has three basic sections. There is a view section on the left-hand side of the screen, which shows a list of out-of-the-box views that can be used for filtering incidents. You can create your own view, which can be private or shared by others. On the top, there is an incident list section, which shows a list of incidents from the filtered view. When an incident is selected from the list, the bottom pane shows details of the selected incident. The General tab on the bottom pane has a tracking section. This is where you can acknowledge the incident, add comments, or do other management of the incident. There is also a guided diagnostic and resolution section, which is integrated with My Oracle support to provide related or useful information if available for the incident. The next topic is Blackout. When you have planned maintenance and you know you will bring your IT assets down, you don't want to receive alerts for those targets being down. Enterprise Manager has a concept of blackout that helps you maintain monitoring accuracy during the maintenance window. When you set your targets under blackout, or notification blackout, you will not get notified for the targets by Enterprise Manager during the specified period. That's what you want because you know you'll bring the targets down and you don't want to be alerted for that. So you can basically stop EM from sending the notifications during the maintenance window to avoid such false alarm. That's the basic concept of blackout. So what's the difference between the blackout and notification blackout? Blackout suspends the entire monitoring of the target, so no metric collection is being done during the time. Notification blackout, on the other hand, suppresses the notification but continues to collect the metric values from the target. Therefore, under notification blackout, if you go to Incident Manager, you see the event generated as usual as you bring the targets down. It just does not send notification for those events. So notification blackout can be used if you care the SLA and want to keep the SLA affected by the target outage, but if you don't want to get the notifications, that's when you can use the notification blackout instead of blackout. And the last topic today is always-on monitoring. This is one of the new features introduced in the Enterprise Manager 13.1 release. Always-on monitoring, or AOM in short, is a life support for EM when there is undergoing EM maintenance. It provides continuous monitoring of targets during the EM downtime. And AOM is a very lightweight Java application which is completely independent from EM. It runs standalone without Enterprise Manager. So no matter what status the EM has, AOM can continue to run. AOM receives target status events, metric alert, and metric collection error from agents in parallel to what agent does with OMS. So what happens here is that agent sends the information separately to both OMS and AOM. Then AOM sends email notifications to users who are listed in a downtime contact target property. And this downtime contact is a new target property which is introduced along with AOM. This needs to be configured as a part of AOM setup. The diagram in the bottom side of the screen shows the AOM architecture. You can see that AOM sits on top of EM topology, having a dedicated repository. Agents send alert information to both AOM and OMS. AOM does not talk to OMS, it only synchronizes with OMR to get email address of the downtime contacts and target metadata information. So it is completely independent from EM operation. Therefore, when EM is brought down for its planned downtime, AOM continues to run, receive alerts from agents, and send email notification to administrator. AOM, however, has limitations. It only supports email notification. No support we have to incident rule features, other notification methods, corrective actions, or notification blackout. AOM basically is a utility that is designed to cover minimum alerting requirements during the planned Enterprise Manager downtime. That was all what I have for today. As for the resource, documentation is always the best to start with and has most of the information in regards to how the product works. We also have other video recordings which are recorded by EM product managers. They can be viewed in Oracle Learning Library, also available in YouTube. This is the end of the presentation of Enterprise Manager Monitoring Overview. Thank you for watching.